Here we are, episode 11 of the Two Russells podcast. We're back after a little break. How was yours, Russell?
It was great, but good to be back. I've missed this, haven't you?
Oh, definitely I've missed this. I even listened to myself whilst we were away.
Oh, did you? You've been on the beach in Vietnam listening to your own podcast.
Yeah, and I'm
wow.
sure...
It just shows how good it is.
I'm sure as you were driving through the Pyrenees, you had the tunes on in the background of me.
Yeah, well, of course, as always, I've always got you somewhere in front of mind, Russell. But look, I have been looking forward to this episode.
Well, you have to, because you said we would come back with a bang,
and
my word.
And we have. Not just a bang, but normally we interview one person. Today we're not interviewing one, not two, not three, but four people. So let's introduce the top brass of eXp Realty and eXp UK. Can I just say, how often is it that the top bods, the top table, the senior figures from a UK estate agency go onto a podcast or interviewed on the radio or the television, so the likes of Connell's Countrywide, Sotheby's, Knight Frank, Savills? How often does that happen?
It's a rarity, shall we say.
It doesn't happen.
It's a rarity,
but
yeah.
Today, I cannot believe, I mean, seriously, this is wonderful on the basis of having everybody that's at the top of eXp, not just here, but here from America, here from the US. So we've got Glenn Sanford, who is, of course, the founder and the CEO of eXp Holdings, so the overall eXp business. Leo, the fairly recently installed CEO of eXp Realty. We'll see how that's going in a second. And of course, Michael Valdez, who is responsible for all of the growth that obviously we'll talk about as far as eXp are concerned globally. And last but definitely not least, Adam Day, who obviously everybody in the UK knows. He's the UK expansion leader of eXp, and not doing a bad job, I think, but maybe we'll come back to that. Can we talk first of all then about size?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that will be on the lips of everybody who's listening. Welcome, gentlemen. Glenn, first question to you, if I may. So, when you dreamt up eXp, this is going to be the vision, this is where I'm going to go. How big did you hope it would get, and how big are we today?
Wow, good question. Thanks for having us on the podcast. In 2009 when we started eXp, it was really a science experiment. Nobody had done a truly virtual cloud-based brokerage up until that point in time. Lots of people talked about it. Lots of people talked about the mobile agent, the fact that they wouldn't need to go to an office and that we were uberly connected and that everything was going paperless and digital and online, but nobody had actually taken the leap and done that business model. And so, we adjusted some ingredients and sort of built our own version of a model, which obviously has worked. But my motivational speech to my team was, and I told the team, we're all going home, we're all working from home. This is going to work or it's not going to work. If it doesn't work, we're all looking for work. So that's how much faith I had in the model at the time. Was I didn't know. Now, on paper, it looked great, but I'm an entrepreneur, which basically means that it always looks great on paper. But in reality, you don't know until you actually do something. And, so what I thought would be a home run would be if we got to 10,000 agents, that would be a home run. And in reality, the largest independent single brokerages, that was about their max size. Okay. So for me, 10,000, maybe 20,000 was sort of that first thing. But that, of course, that was 15 years ago.
And they're big numbers in themselves, aren't they?
They are. I mean, they in some cases fill small sports arenas, and which when you see 20,000 people in a space, you go, holy smokes, that's a lot of people.
But Glenn, we shouldn't gloss over the fact you founded this business in 2009. Now, famously, 2009 was amidst a global financial crisis. So that should be a lesson to people, really, that when you think you're kind of down and the economy's not in a great shape, and of course we arguably, whether it's the UK, US or elsewhere across the planet, we've had challenging times, of course, over the last kind of 12 months or so. But there's a lesson there, isn't there, that even though things might seem really tough, and hey, it's not the time to be starting my own business, or it's not the right time to be starting as a self-employed agent, you kind of prove that that's not true.
Yeah, the reality is that we looked at the backdrop that we had at the time, and fundamentally, I couldn't afford the offices I had. So this was an exercise in getting rid of expenses and pivoting our existing business models. So it wasn't technically that we started eXp in 2009, but it was a hard pivot from what the economy had handed us in 2008 going into 2009.
So you saw that problem as an opportunity.
Correct. I mean, one of Leo's favorite phrases is turn a bug into a feature. And so, so we turned the idea that we couldn't have offices, which a lot of agents still like offices, so don't get me wrong, but we said, what does the future look like? We look 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I don't believe that most people see themselves going to offices and doing business. Not the generation of folks that'll be selling in 10 years. Like the old guard, they still sort of want the office, but they're sort of the legacies, we'll say kind of the dinosaurs teaching dinosaurs how to be better dinosaurs, right? But the new agent, they're totally mobile. I mean, they're gig economy. They're work when they want to, not because they're told to. And so that next generation of agent, and of course here in the UK, it's a different market. Like it's like fundamentally most people are employed agents.
And not self-employed. Yeah, as we'll come on to in terms of the differentiation. So what you guys are saying, I mean, maybe it's a question for Leo, is that you are geared up as a platform to ensure sort of modern, mobile, virtual working because of the way that people now have decided that they want to work as agents.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always fascinated when people don't actually take the approach of a sample size of one, right? I'll say from stage, I'm 5'11", 190 pounds with a beard. There's like 80 millions of me, right? So a lot of people will say, well, have you tried this form of marketing? Have you tried that? And I always stop agents to say, well, what works on you? How do you consume everything today?
The straw poll of one kind of thing, which is a Richard Branson saying, actually.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've heard him say it, but I will go with great minds think alike.
It's kind of worked out for him, I think. Yeah. Right. He's got an island and
so many things. I open my mail over the trash can. I don't pick up calls from strangers, but I've bought a lot of things that pulled on emotion on Instagram or Facebook, right? So I think so many of us get stuck in, well, like this is the way it is, but how do you actually behave every day? How do you interact? And it's all digital, right? I equate the cell phone to the remote control to your life, right? So if that's not how we traditionally go, why are we still holding on to so many other different things that aren't part of how we're wired now?
Definitely, we'll come to that in a moment, but back to the numbers, Glenn. So the size we are now, or it might be one for you, Michael, is how many agents have we got worldwide?
Yeah, we're a little over 85,000 agents in 24 countries. Here in the UK, I think we're 550 plus, something like that. So
you're the market leader in the UK.
Yeah, I think we're technically been the fastest growing brand in the UK as well.
I'm sure Adam will comment on that in a minute. I mean, you are by far the market leader, but we'll come back to that. Yeah. So 550 agents UK, 85,000 worldwide. Can you talk about revenue, market cap, that kind of thing, just to give us a sense of how big eXp is as a global business?
Yeah, well, we're a public company, so that makes it easy to kind of look up a lot of this stuff. But we're doing generally about $4 billion US in overall revenue, which is primarily commissions, like 95% of that's commission-based revenue. We've got a market cap of $1.6, $1.8 billion as a company. I'm the single largest shareholder in the company. And one thing I'm really proud of is the fact that our agents, brokers, staff, and founders own somewhere between 60 to 70% of our company. And we never took money from institutional investors, VCs, private equity. So we really control our destiny.
Wow. Okay. So you're not having a board of investors in Silicon Valley calling the shots.
No.
Coming on to growth. Then.
Sure.
550 in the UK. I think there's probably Adam 1,000 self-employed agents in the UK. You've been on a whistle-stop tour worldwide at the moment, gents. I think Lisbon.
We started at Madrid, actually.
Madrid,
Lisbon, UK, and then we're off to Nice tomorrow.
Nice, and then we were hearing about a conference in Miami. So
we are, yes.
And we just came from Canada before.
That's right. We're on the road.
So growth in the UK, particularly, our listeners will be particularly interested in growth in the UK. So how do you see that shaping up, Michael, Adam? Where do you see this going to in the UK?
Yeah, well, I'll let Adam really talk about the UK model, but really growth overall has been extraordinary. I joined eXp in May of 2020, so during the midst of a pandemic, and the fact that we were able to open 20 countries in a little under 2 years has actually never been done in our industry. So this was all done with the idea that during the pandemic, everybody wanted that human connection. How are we going to connect to another human being? The idea that we had the technology through eXp World and other technological resources that eXp had, people felt connected. It was the idea that we were able to expand as quickly as we did. That's never been done. Now, the UK was open right before the pandemic, and so they've had a little bit more time for that growth trajectory, but it has been extraordinary. In fact, I think, Adam, the majority of our growth happened during the pandemic, didn't it?
We had a big start in during the pandemic. Yeah, we launched officially in October, November 19, and obviously 3-4 months later you got lockdown, and it kind of it did help us. I'd like to take the credit, obviously, but I'll give some of the credit to the pandemic actually. But it was a good time, and it showed people that you could work from home, and we had a lot of agents joining at that point, and it's been a bit of a rocket ship journey over the last 4.5 years, 5 years coming up to. So we're with 550 agents plus.
And is it fair to say that, indicative of the fact that the three most senior people at eXp are here in London, that the UK market is fairly important to you, Michael?
Absolutely.
How big is it?
So it is our largest territory as far as revenue is concerned outside of North America.
Wow.
So outside of the US and Canada, UK is next. Adam has been an incredible leader. He's been able to really look at this trajectory and understand what the value is of the eXp model and be able to very eloquently express that to the market that's not used to this model of an independent contractor.
And that is really compelling, right?
Absolutely.
So I think Glenn touched on it just now. I think Leo did as well. The fact that the UK market is seen by some operators as, hey, you're all people. You're all flesh and blood. It's all the same. The UK market, and I know we would say this because we're sitting here in the UK as kind of ex-UK estate agents and realtors, but it really is different here. Different culture, 100%. Different model entirely. The self-employed thing is still seen as somewhat alien. Different
Lower
legislation.
Fees, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of differences, and I think that really needs to be understood. And I guess from the point of view of recruiting agents, whose phone is that, by the way? I think it's a potential agent ringing, wants to speak to one of you four to see why you should sign up at eXp.
That'll be your agent waiting to come up.
Yeah. So I think it's important that agents that are not yet self-employed but maybe flirting with the principle understand that the platform that they're thinking about joining understands the difference, that this is not just some Americanized model being imposed on Britain. I have to say there have been platforms from the United States that have come to Britain that do think it's the same.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, which I have some experience of. And I've got to say, seriously, I spent a lot of time and effort saying to that particular platform, do not confuse the UK and the US. They are not the same. People might be the same, but there are differences. How can you demonstrate that eXp understands the UK market and its idiosyncrasies and its differences? I don't know who wants to answer that. It's up to you.
Well, I'll start, and Adam, you can really sort of hone in. But actually, when we opened up any territory that we did outside of North America, every single country has a different model slightly, so that we are competitive in market. So we are a local company with a global platform. It's really how we look at things. And so we understand that every country is absolutely its own unique set of rules, set of culture. The way that business is done is very unique to that country. And so we started in that manner. And then we had other nuances that Adam can touch on that really focuses on the advantages for that estate agent in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think for me it was really important in the early days when I first spoke to Glenn. I remember there was a conversation we had, which Glenn won't remember, but we were talking about vendors, and in the US a vendor is a supplier, and in the UK a vendor is a seller of a house, obviously. And me and Glenn were talking the same language, but actually misunderstanding each other completely, because he was talking about suppliers and I was talking about sellers of houses. And I remember our former CEO came over and helped launch the business. We did a little roadshow. And I fined him £20 every time he used the word real estate or brokerage or licensing or these kind of things. So I think you know, these guys have been great. We did a mastermind session yesterday. That was all for charity, by the way. That money, I didn't pocket that £80 every time, but yeah,
we got the receipts. I hope.
Sorry,
you got the receipts.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But we did a mastermind session yesterday, and these guys here were all, you know, using the word estate agents, and you know, rather than realtors, and so I think that these guys have fully understood that there is a difference in language, even though we all speak English, and culture and the model overall.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things that came out of the mastermind yesterday, and it's something that I think quite a bit, because obviously we've been doing this since 2018, you know, in the UK. But I think about the continuum of a estate agent or an individual going from self-employed to employed, and I think it's a continuum. Like, you're going to start somewhere, but you're also, human beings are aspirational. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to sort of hit glass ceilings. And what we've noticed is that the employed model creates a ceiling of achievement for agents from a financial perspective. And so, you know, one of the things that we'll probably end up, you know, facilitating, helping, it might be done just totally in the UK, but helping agents go from employed to self-employed, and the business planning and the work that needs to go into it, because it is a mental shift. There's safety in a weekly or monthly paycheck.
Yes.
However, my dad had told me years ago, which I bought into hook, line, and sinker, that it's riskier to take a job with a paycheck than it is to be an entrepreneur.
In the long term?
In the long term, because you're basically capped in income when somebody gives you a salary.
You've kind of sealed your destiny, haven't you, financially, I guess, at the beginning of your career.
Yeah.
And I think Adam, that probably leads on to a question that the listeners would want to know is, how much are agents earning in the UK as an eXp agent, and how long is it taking it to realise any revenue?
Yeah, it's a great question. One we've looked at quite a lot, actually. It's really difficult because of the lag in the UK. You know, we've had 120 agents join in the last 6 months. Of course, none of them have earned a penny, but that's, you know, 20% of our agent count. So, you know, I get asked this question, and it's difficult because of that lag. We've got well over 100 people with at least a £30,000 pipeline. So if you sort of take that into account, that's probably thick end of 100,000 of gross commission. When you start, you know, 3.5 times pipeline.
Annualised, you mean?
Yeah, if you've got a 30 grand pipeline, 3.5 times, you're going to turn that every year, aren't you? Probably.
Which is about twice as much as they learn in the high street.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
that's the gross commission, though. Isn't
that's
it?
the gross
what's
commission.
Coming,
so
then they take
eXp take out 30% up to 24,000. So, but that's still significantly more, and for working less. You know, that's typically what we're seeing is people are. I would say that roughly a third are absolutely smashing it. You know, they're earning twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more. We had a story yesterday, didn't we, Leo, about the lady who was earning 25 grand a year, and now she's earning 200 grand a year. You know, that was her salary. Was
in the UK right now?
In the UK, yeah.
Right.
25 grand a year was her
200
total income.
He's interested.
Yeah.
Where do I sign?
Let's talk, Russell. This is actually easy.
I'll dust off my tape measure.
Our highest gross commission last year was a guy in the Midlands, East Midlands, £349,000, which I'm sure he's really annoyed about.
What,
He didn't get
GCI?
350.
Gross
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
1,000.
349. So he would have taken away, banked, you know, 300,000 plus after our bits and pieces and other costs.
Let me ask a question just for the benefit of Property Industry Eye, Estate Agent Today, and the Negotiator. Do you think British estate agents are good enough to be self-employed?
100%. I think it's. I mean, Glenn's kind of touched on it there. I think everyone says, "Oh, it's only for certain people," and that is right to an extent. But I'm a big believer that anyone can change their mindset into being an entrepreneur. They've got to expose themselves to the right learnings, the right mentors, the right coaches, the right, you know, habits in the morning or whatever that might be, and it's more about discipline, isn't it, than motivation. It's just remain, you know,
but it is also about support. So, you know, what do we eXp do to make sure that, you know, because the perception might be, hey, I'm working at Foxtons. I quite like this self-employed thing. I quite like the idea of working and earning £100,000.
Or £349,000.
Or £349,000, yeah, indeed. But I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to, you know, running a business, doing my VAT, you know, worrying about compliance and so on. So what do you guys do in terms of support that means that agent that's transferring from the employed sector doesn't feel that he's just jumping in or she's jumping in at the deep end? Yeah.
Well, the takeaway I'm most excited about is I deeply appreciate the mental shift of employed to self-employed, because I think that's a huge chasm to cross. But as we were on our way here in the Uber this morning, I was telling Glenn that a really interesting aha is the opportunity for folks who are currently employed at an estate agency, already have the discipline, the habits, they know how to go do valuations, they know how to list, right? When we have someone who's coming from a different industry in the United States, who's not only transitioning from employed to self-employed, because that's our path as well, it's just coming from a completely different industry where you have to learn real estate versus folks who are currently employed at an estate agency, they've been doing it for years. Like it's secondhand. One of my most amusing aha when I'm speaking to UK estate agents, it's like, oh, I only sold 25 completions last year. 50, and in the US,
That's huge.
That's pretty good.
Massive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you can,
You're like top 5% maybe in the
Yeah,
US. if you do that.
absolutely.
and for me mentally, it's like you have to, I can talk someone going from employed to self-employed in the sense of you just need enough in the bank to be comfortable to support your monthly expenses, but the behavioral skill sets are already there, which is a bigger opportunity than in other countries where we're like, hey, not only do you have to give up safety of employment, I also need to teach you a whole new language, a whole new skill set, a whole new process where it's like mentally it might feel like a bigger thing to cross, but skills and behavior, it's
the same.
It's exactly
and transferable.
And it's not all happens in a straight line, does it? There is failure, and there's people that join and leave. What is that key reason for someone not succeeding? Is that the support or their mindset?
From my vantage point across, 2 decades in the real estate industry, it's consistency and discipline, right? It's, I was with a group of agents yesterday, and we were talking about that once you choose this life, there's an endless list of to-dos.
Yes.
Right? Getting the property on the market, marketing it, to-dos, putting the sign on the ground, all the different processes that come with it. But the one part that cannot be, skipped once you go self-employed is the prospecting. The 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day where you're actually generating the new business because no one's going to hand it to you. That's probably the biggest shift. You go from being an order taker to the one creating the business.
And the mastermind session yesterday, I believe, just takes your learnings from all around the world and shares what best practices are going on elsewhere.
The best part is Michael and I have taken the show on the globe, and what we do is we get the top performing agents in whatever country we're in. When we did it in Lisbon, we had agents from, I think, 8 different countries in the room. And we actually start off by asking them, what's the most pressing question you have right now? And we put it on the board. And surprisingly, this is where the human commonalities kick in. High interest rates, low inventory, high competition. Like, we hear that in every country on the planet right now.
Dependency on the portals.
Exactly.
Mad
exactly.
at portals.
Right. And what's interesting here in the UK especially is that from the mastermind yesterday, we started talking about personal brand, which is really a foreign concept for an estate agent to be the brand.
Yep.
And for eXp to be the platform by which they can actually continue to excel on themselves. We do business, everyone does business with people that they trust and like, right? And the brand is secondary. And so you have a relationship when you're transacting on a property, and the person that you trust to take you through that transaction is who your person is. We empower that person, that estate agent, to become the personal brand. And that's a foreign concept here, but everyone that was in that mastermind and the 550 people that are already part of this organization have embraced that. And it comes back to that mindset.
Well, and there has to be a paradigm shift in the UK, right? So let's say you have a branch manager or a lister that's worked at a well-known brand for the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's probably the case, and you'll know this from your role at Spicer Hart and also as a recruiter, that's the success of that branch office is largely them and their team. They maybe think it's because they've got Spicer Hart, Foxtons, whoever, Connells behind them. How do you ensure that there is that switch flicked in their mind where they think, hang on a sec, the reason that person keeps coming back to me as a seller, the reason that buyer wants to buy from us here, it's not just because of the Bear Stowes brand or the Foxtons brand or the Sotheby's brand, it's actually because of me. And therefore that if they jumped into self-employed, they're already half done, right?
So like that hairdresser.
Yeah.
Whispers in your ear.
So how do you get that across?
Yeah, for me, it's the Roger Bannister effect. when you see a mate you worked with for 10 years go from making 25,000 pounds to 200,000 pounds, they're like, oh, I know I can do it if he can do it.
Yeah, because I was better than him.
Yeah. and that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Even when and one of the things that's unique about this company is all three of us are currently licensed, sold homes at scale, which you don't see in leadership in leadership teams of publicly traded real estate companies. But when my production went from, mediocre to top tier, it was because I got into the rooms and I started hanging out with people selling 300, 400, 500 homes. And I had the aha moment. I'm like, I can say anything this person can say.
Yeah.
Like, I can implement any behavior that they do on a daily basis.
It's kind of like an osmosis. Your game is raised automatically because you see the power of the possible.
Getting people to move from that dependent to independent is the big piece, isn't it, when you're talking about self-employed, as we have done in this area.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to move to some quick-fire questions as we head towards the end of the podcast. And
Sure.
I'm going to aim mine first at you, Glenn, because it's a real honour to have you in the room. But to do this, come on this podcast, come to the UK, what's continually driving you and what's next for you?
For me, I believe that real estate is one of the most noble professions on the planet. And yet real estate agents are some of the most abused people in the current structure of real estate. So I feel it's my mission to help agents actually build something meaningful for their long-term future. For me, that's what gets me up every day, because it's a mission. Financially, I'm set, never have to work another day in my life. But just thinking about the fact that there's agents out there that are struggling to understand what's next, I want to continue to help pave the way for them to see a better future.
I have a horrible question for you, Adam. Sorry. Anyone can answer, but I think Adam is probably a better qualified to answer because it's a UK-specific question. Lots of noise in the self-employed space. Obviously, we've talked about where it's got to. So it's gone from nothing to 1,000 agents. I personally think there's a tipping point coming. I don't know what you think that tipping point is or what makes that tipping point happen, but I think self-employed will grow hugely and significantly in the UK once it's kind of embedded. But there are other models. Keller Williams, for instance, who, in my opinion, have failed in the UK for whatever reason. Of course, we have the agency, we have the estate agency now. Very confusing that they're called very similar names with Chris Buckler, Nested. Which competitor in Britain do you fear the most?
God, that's a good question. I don't fear anyone necessarily. I think.
You think you've got no competition?
No, we've got competition for sure. I just don't fear people. I think that we've got a really good model. We've got good foundations. We're always keeping an eye on our competitors. I suppose I fear complacency by myself, and leading the business. That's the mistake I made with my old business. When a certain purple company came along, and we kind of got complacent because we'd seen off all the other competitors, and that's kind of, it's in my own, and I think these guys agree with that as well. We've talked about this a lot. And, who are our competitors? What do they do? What's the model? We keep an eye on everyone.
So you're mindful but not fearful.
Yeah, that's probably a perfect summary. Yes, I would say so.
Where do you think it goes in Britain? Self-employed. How big does it get? Seriously, I know we've kind of talked about this before, but and I don't think it's worth putting a kind of date on it because I think that's a foolish thing to do. Who knows? But what do you think self-employed could be as a percentage of estate agency as a market?
Me and you have both made predictions in the past
and been really wrong.
So we're not going to do that again, Russell.
But
although Russell's very right in his mergers and acquisitions prediction this year.
M&A, and I've been right on the housing market to almost a T. But anyway, but when it came to predicting the size of online estate agencies, I was woefully wrong. Yeah. But this is different, right? Because the unit economics of online estate agency don't work. The unit economics for the agent and for the platform in this respect, because commissions are what they are in terms of being full, the unit economics work, right? So the only thing that stops someone becoming self-employed is not the unit economics and the financials, it's their bravery, frankly, it's their boldness. So where does it get to? I'm going to push you.
Well, I think look, we're 550, 560 agents right now. We want to be 750 by the end of the year. That's kind of that sort of area. We forecast out that we think we can get to 10% market share of the UK, which will be about 5,000 agents, we think. And that's kind of the target, that's the goal, that's where we want to end up. If not a little bit more than that, we've evolved the model, so now we can bring entire estate agency businesses in. So, you know, it's an unusual metric for us in the UK, isn't it? Right? I've never been targeted on agent numbers. It's always been valuations, and it's one thing I've certainly learned from the US is that actually it's the agents that drive the business. Kind of like what Michael was saying a second ago. It is the agent, not the agency, that drives the business. You know, the bigger the likes of Connells get is because they get more agents on board. It's not because their brand gets bigger necessarily. So yeah, we've got new models now, and that could accelerate much more quickly and go past 5,000 potentially. But yeah, that's kind of what I've got my sights set on over the next few years.
Okay.
And remember, it's an ebb and flow because Adam, as well as all of our international leaders, we meet every single month. We look at what the P&L is. We sort of talk about where the growth trajectory is. We make any adjustments that we need to based on our forecast on a global scale. So we do keep a great pulse on every market, but especially the UK, since it's our largest outside of North America.
Yeah.
With our early podcast, we had several ladies on that were talking about their struggle to rise to the top. Here we are, 6 men in a room on a podcast. Is this a representation of the leadership team of eXp?
It's not entirely. I mean, our chief marketing officer, Wendy Forsyth, she comes from a very strong background, very similar to ours. She was just in Lisbon at our international eXpCon event. We've got a number of other women in leadership. Success Magazine, which we own underneath the eXp umbrella, is led by Amy Somerville, and then most of our agents are in fact women. And we're continuing looking for opportunities for them. But quite frankly, they're making so much money in selling real estate that they're
why would they want to be in management?
They're not as interested in the leadership positions.
No, but across the board, our portfolio companies, Carrie Lisinko runs Zoocasa, Renee just joined us as our chief people officer. Almost every SVP, VP. I mean, we have an incredibly strong leadership team of women in our company.
Fantastic. Michael, what's next as growth?
Well, look, we're looking at a lot of different divisions. For example, we have just launched a land and ranch division in the United States. We had a luxury division, which we launched about a year and a half ago in the States. We're now rolling it out internationally. Obviously, in the UK, that will be a big part of our future business with having a focus on luxury. We're looking at some other divisions, perhaps a sports and entertainment division. So we are looking at, since we are the largest independent real estate brokerage on the planet, it's a great force of having 85,000 plus agents across 24 countries and their specialized focus as we continue to grow. So we're excited for the future.
Good.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. We always give our guests an opportunity to give a pitch, probably Adam for you. This is the UK. And if someone's interested in eXp, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm all over LinkedIn. You've probably seen me on there. But,
Once or twice.
Yeah.
When you're not in the ice bath.
Yeah, when I'm not in the ice bath. But yeah, LinkedIn, and I'm very active on LinkedIn. But look, talk to the agents. Don't talk to me. Contact one of the agents. Contact agents in the UK and in America. Find out how that special relationship between the UK and the US is formed and how we can learn from each other and how we can grow together. So that collaboration is important, and just reach out to one of the agents anywhere in the world.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that's it for episode 11.
That is.
An EXP special. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Honestly, wonderful that you've taken the time out to come and see us. You're very, very busy. Thanks for stopping on your Whistle Stop World Tour. I guess we can now look forward to episode 12.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the show. Been really great to hear more about eXp. But that's it from us. So it's good night from me.
And it's goodbye from... Good night or goodbye? Good night. What time is it, Russell? Where have you been? Goodbye from him.